More women are working now than ever before. Without a female workforce, this big manufacturing plant would close down overnight. 40% of the staff here are women. Most of them, though, are doing routine jobs that men don't want. If any one of them decided she wanted to make a career in industry, she'd soon find strong limitations on how far she could go and what kind of job she could get. For a woman, it's simple enough to become a process worker, but virtually impossible to be office manager. This young woman understands what it means. Mrs. Merica Johnson is a Bachelor of Science and has a Diploma of Applied Chemistry with 3 years industrial training. She can't get a job.
I apply, either usually written or sometimes telephone, and in all cases where I've written, they have sent me favourable replies because my qualifications apparently are suitable, and they also think I'm a man. But when I arrive at the interview, however, they see, of course, immediately that I'm a woman, and the interview is immediately closed by saying they don't want a woman, they advertise for a man, and that's it.
What reasons do they give for not wanting a woman?
Oh, well, many and varied. One company told me that I might be raped if I go into the plant. Others tell me that the laboratory is in a dirty part of the plant and it would be unsuitable for a woman. Or that there are no toilet facilities available in the laboratory for a woman, even though there are secretaries, female secretaries, walking around who obviously have to go somewhere.
Feeling it? Good. Now we'll just do a tummy exercise next. This is called a sit-up. Lie down, hands on top of your thighs, sit up, touch your toes, lie down. Bit hard there, getting up.
But most women find it easier to flex themselves within the limits of the traditional roles they're expected to play.
Now just some little knee bends, feet together, hands up on your waistline, and just bend slowly and up. Stay up on your toes, that's good. Back straight, fine, good. Stand up straight. Now just for your thighs.
A lot of these women are the wives of business executives. This homemaker's course grooms them to help in their husbands' careers from the discrete background of home and family.
You pick up your knife and your fork and you hold them this way. You don't clutch them and you don't put your fingers right down here on them.
It's amazing the number of girls who can hold it like a pencil, you know, like that.
Like that, yes.
It's quite surprising.
In between each second mouthful of food that you take, you should have a sip of wine. And there is a correct and an incorrect way to hold a glass. And also, you mustn't clutch a glass like this, or a lot of people are inclined to hold it down the bottom of the stem.
It looks
which
so
is
awkward,
entirely wrong.
you know.
Because it looks top-heavy.
And it will top.
The majority of women here started their working lives in business. Now, they're more important to their husbands' careers, learning about table settings than the intricacies of office management.
Gentlemen, today we shall discuss in some detail the actual principles of management.
Women stand very little chance of ever getting to executive training seminars like this one. It can cost companies up to $700 to send an executive to one of these training programs. In most cases, they're reluctant to spend that kind of money on a woman. Last year, the Australian Institute of Management arranged 150 training programs. 6,500 executives attended. Only one was a woman. The situation has been the same for the last 20 years. Director of the Sydney division of the Institute of Management, George Rennick, saw a very different situation on a recent tour of the United States, where women are well represented in managerial positions.
I believe that we, management in Australia, do not put the same values on women executives that, say, our American cousins do. And the reason that I think they don't is that they doubt their leadership qualities, they doubt their decision-making qualities, they doubt their human relationships for the people that they work with and work through. They think sometimes that women are, in an executive position, cause more chaos amongst employees than getting the results they should be getting. And I know from talking to a lot of Australian managers that if they advertise a certain executive position and they establish a short list for the final interviews, and we'll say there's one man left in the short list and one woman left in the short list, invariably, in 99.5 cases out of 100, they'll pick the man.
And although there's a shortage of skilled people to fill top management jobs in industry, women are seldom heard of in positions of authority. Miss Kathleen Holmes is one of the fortunate exceptions. She's administrative officer in the personnel division of a national manufacturing company and deals with management at all levels in the industry. She finds that social conditioning inhibits women most.
Just to show you what I mean, we were interviewing the other day a group of young men for executive cadetships, and part of this interview technique is a leaderless discussion of topics of mutual interest. And we asked them whether or not they thought women and men should be paid equally. And the discussion that rose out of this question was rather interesting, and it was quite obvious that of this group of 6 young university-educated men, only one of them didn't really basically think that women's place was in the home. And in fact, one young man went so far as to say that if real and complete equality of the sexes came about, the whole structure of our society as we know it would collapse.
To what extent, then, do you think that attitudes like this are limiting the opportunities that young women are getting?
I think they're limiting them quite a lot. There are still a great many men in industry who don't relish the idea of women managers, who don't particularly want to work for women. This is not usually on the basis of experience either. It's just that they don't like the idea of working for women. And companies certainly don't regard a young woman in quite the way as they regard a young man. They quite confidently expect to lose her at some stage during her career, so they don't pay the same attention to her management development as they do to a young man of equal academic achievement.
The New South Wales school certificate results published in January this year showed as many girls with passes as boys. 16 large business firms advertised in the columns, setting out career opportunities for the successful candidates. 14 of the companies, though, offered a future for young men only. 1 promised cadetships for young people, and 1 offered girls secretarial courses. Alan Moyes is managing director of Australia's largest computer company. There are no women in senior positions with the firm, but young people, he says, under the age of 25 get equal opportunities.
We look to a manager to first begin to show out in, say, around the mid-20s. We would say that if a manager is going to become a top manager, he will have really shown forth in a management sense by the middle 30s. He will have made some major decisions and some major mistakes within management by the time he's in his middle 30s. Now, unfortunately, this is the period where most married women are out of the business world altogether. In addition to that, we're living in a world where technological progress is more rapid than it's ever been. We're in business to grow and to make profits and expand. And so therefore one has to recognize that amongst the recruitment that you do, you are recruiting managers of the future. Whatever you take in is all that you've got to run your business in the future. And you're naturally concerned, therefore, that what you take in is going to stay with you as much as you can for a long enough period to develop the management you need. So in looking at women, you have to recognize that the chances of you holding them are much less than they are with women, or with men at least.
Women who do last the distance will almost certainly find themselves outnumbered in a world like this, where men make the rules and competition for promotion is tough, where business is discussed informally over dinner at the club, and men resolve their professional differences over a drink. These men have never had to compete directly with a woman for a job. They don't know yet if they ever will. They do know that a woman's career in business is more uncertain than their own.
It definitely affects the planning of an industry, though. You find that if you get a male executive, you get a far higher percentage staying right through their career, whereas if you get a female, there's always the opportunity that a career will be cut short for this 10 or 15 years that you mentioned.
But the industry has to plan for everything, surely.
You've got to fill her position though. Now, what are you going to fill it with? You've got a position all of a sudden, maybe without a lot of notice in your ranks. This creates more problems.
There is you have to provide relief for men going on leave or wanting to broaden their experience by...
Not for 10 or 15 years though.
You can't get enough people for these skilled positions, and it's better to take a woman whose career may be interrupted than to be able to get than to take a second-class male.
English-based management consultant Nelson Mitten makes recommendations for up to 6,000 executive appointments in a year. He seldom considers women for management, though, because he says they're just not right for the job.
Say if on my board we had a woman, I think our conversation, for example, would be less direct. It would make it much longer. There would be, you know, the sort of chivalry which applies. And I think there would be backbiting and talking afterwards, you know what I mean? Well, I didn't really like to say that in front of her because, you know what I mean? She'd probably say quite a lot. And things mean different, the way you say things mean different things to different people, particularly between men and women. You know, as I was saying, if somebody says to me, where'd you get that hat? It's a compliment. I say, probably some big London store. But if I say to a woman, where did you get that hat? Same words. She takes offense immediately. She says, you don't like it, do you? You know what I mean? These are the little things which illustrate it, probably, the different way in which we're built.
Mrs. Sayer has submitted some merchandise.
But on this board of directors, a combination of one woman and two men does work. Mrs. Millie Martindale joined London Baby Carriages as a bookkeeper 30 years ago. Now she's a director of the firm and one of the highest paid women in Victoria, controlling the development of 13 retail stores throughout eastern Australia. But even in a business catering mainly for women, a female executive has to beat social convention.
Thank you. No, it's really very much a man's world. This is something that I, as a businesswoman, discover repeatedly, that I take one of my business associates, a man, to lunch. I must be very certain that it is convenient to us both that we should go to a restaurant where I have an expense account.
This is because there's embarrassment about paying the bill?
Oh, yes. In fact, to the point where if I try to take some money out of my purse for a tip, 9 times out of 10 the man will say, well, at least let me pay the tip, even though he is my guest. This is repeated endlessly. If I take another woman to lunch, we're likely to end up behind the pot of palm. I think that from school level on, women are not sufficiently informed just what wonderful opportunities there are for women. And so they presume the old story that a woman's place is in a domestic role in the home and with the family. And that they don't anticipate that they perhaps will be anything more than a typist clerk in the interim while they're waiting for that to happen to them.
Career guidance officers complain that young women during their education don't think long-term about their lives in the same way that boys do. They tend to take stop-gap jobs until marriage and deny themselves the possibility of continuing a career after marriage. In fact, it's been estimated that only half the girls with the ability to make professional or administrative careers ever take full advantage of their brain power.
Marriage is more important than a job to me, because I want to work, do a job before I get married, and then maybe some work after I'm married too, if I have to.
Well, before you get married, will you be trying to make a career in the job that you're doing? Or filling in time?
Filling in time, I think.
For most women, though, marriage is something which completely dominates their ideas. A job is something just for biding time before they get married. But personally, my career is going to be, well, more or less my complete thing that I'll do.
And I think a lot of girls think they want a career, and then in a few years' time they'll think, oh, well, maybe I don't want the career I thought I did. I think that's what's going to happen with quite a lot of us, actually. We want a career and we want to do great things, but I don't think we will. I think we'll have a job, get married, carry it on, and then drop it.
Some of these girls filling stop-gap jobs have the opportunity to take more senior positions, but they won't, mainly because they simply don't want the responsibility that goes with promotion.
Well, I think that men do resent working under a woman, and I think this is because they do have their pride to think of. They like to think of themselves as breadwinners in society, and that's why, you know, I don't think it's really a girl's place to have a top position.
I don't think I could be a boss or anything like that, but I would like to have a pretty senior position.
Why couldn't you be a boss?
I don't think they'd take it. I don't think men would appreciate working under a woman for a start.
Why not?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think they would. You know what I mean?
They have their egos to think of.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
But some employers suggest that rather than male egos, it's women themselves who impose their own limitations. Satisfaction in the job is more important than promotion. Freelance journalist Mabel Dagger interviewed some of Sydney's senior women executives for a business journal. She concluded that even from the beginning, women tend to impose limitations on how far they'll be able to go in their careers.
Well, they're virtually working in a man's world, and they accept it from the beginning that it's a man's world. Therefore, I mean, there's no use pounding your head against a stone wall when you're going to get where you want to go without too much problem. And I think that this is what they do, why they put the limit on.
Did they basically want to be managing directors?
No, I don't think so. None of them are empire builders. None of them wanted that. They wanted to get the fulfillment of a career in business. And this is how they got it, by being good in their job and getting where they wanted to get. But they weren't aiming for the stars. None of them were.
Well, your biggest problem, of course, is coordinating your home life and your office life, particularly if you've got a high-pressure job, which mine is. Of course, there have been times when I've devoted more of my time and energy to the job, and in reverse, probably, there have been times when that might be hot, that one.
Mrs. Ada Morgan hasn't accepted any limitations. She's been able to combine her career as a homemaker with a high-pressure executive job. She started working 12 years ago when her 2 children were teenagers. She was a typist clerk. Now she's company secretary of an investment group and assistant company secretary of the $2.5 million Project Development Corporation. She believes that the primary role of a woman is to be a homemaker and always puts her own family first.
I'm just as happy now as a few years ago. It hasn't made any difference at all.
The fact is that I've been able to sort of coordinate my working hours without him suffering.
Well, then, do you think it's just as easy for a woman to be successful in an executive position, a managerial position, as a man?
Oh, much, much harder. You've got to fight every inch of the way. And you've got the added responsibility of home as well, which you can't neglect. And whereas a man can go off with a free mind, a woman still has got a home at the back of her mind, and she still has to know that she's left the house in the morning the way it should be left, and she still knows that she has to put a meal on the table at night, and although you don't let it intrude into your thoughts during the day, it's there, and you know it's just something you have to do. So I would say definitely a woman starts at a disadvantage, even from that aspect alone.
But for a lot of women, the disadvantage is not really a problem because they don't seem to want a career. For those that do, ambition often ends with marriage. The brave war cry of business that there's room at the top has yet to include women. For them, the top is only too often a chair behind the potted palm.